Welcome back to another episode of Business Breakthroughs. I'm delighted to be joined by my friend and CEO of RL Therapy Group, Miss Ryan Landinguin. Ryan, welcome. It's so good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's truly a pleasure and always great to catch up.
Yes, ditto, you too. It's an honor to have you. So, a little bit about Ryan so that you have some history about her journey. She's been working as a speech language pathologist since 2012, so almost 15 years in that particular industry. And she's owned her pediatric private practice for 10 years this year. So, congratulations. That is a huge, huge win. And Oral
Oh,
Therapy Group provides speech, occupational, and physical therapy using family-guided routines-based intervention approach. And they emphasize the importance on empowering parents and caregivers to take control of their child's development. Prior to COVID, Ryan and her team began integrating this approach into teletherapy and proudly trained over 3,000 therapists across the country once the pandemic hit. And we'll talk more about that. And as of today, Ryan's team is spread across 17 states, right? Yep,
yes,
17
yes.
states. And they work with about over 600 clients per week. And Ryan takes pride in finding innovative ways to customize therapy to meet each family's needs while supporting her team to provide the highest quality of therapy to their clients. So, welcome again, Ryan. It's a delight to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yay. So tell us a little bit more about RL Therapy Group, and there was an opportunity that presented itself when you first started. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, going back 10 years ago, I was working in the school district as a speech pathologist and was on maternity leave with my second baby and just decided to give it a go and try, going to families' homes.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with just the whole idea of seeing parents really being empowered by their ability to impact their child in really positive ways. I
Mhm.
think a lot of parents have this false perception that, we have this magic fairy dust that we can sprinkle over their child.
Mhm.
Um, and I was determined to change that. And I was determined to really show parents that it's not me, it's truly something that they can do and they can do more
Mhm.
frequently and more effectively.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, that's how it all gets started back in the homes. And now we are all remote and following that same principle and, just working with more and more families. So
Mhm. Yep. The impact is greater, right? It's so COVID, and tell me if I'm off here, but COVID allowed you or kind of forced you to
yeah,
scale where you had, I mean, you were working directly with families and going into their homes and or having, that was the time that you had your office. So we used to have offices right across the hall and down the stairs from each other. So it was great because we would meet up and be like,
good
oh,
old
what's happening?
days.
What's happening? Yeah. It's like a whole lifetime ago, it feels like. But it was in person. So, tell our listeners and our watchers, what was the shift that you had to make, and how did you and your team move forward in that?
Yeah, I mean, actually it started in 2018, I would say. So just a
Mhm.
few years after the business started. One of my deep passions when I started the business was really creating what I call a therapist-centered business.
Mhm.
I'm really kind of giving you a whole backstory here, but a lot of times in our industry, of course, therapist burnout is very
Mhm.
real.
Mhm.
And it's hard for us to, work 20, 30 years in the field sitting on a child's, sitting on the floor of someone's family room and,
Sure.
all day long. So I always knew, long term that this really wasn't sustainable for myself
Mhm.
or any of the therapists that worked for me. So I had this vision, knowing how important and effective the family guided routines based intervention was. I
Mhm.
had this, you know, uh, itch, if you will,
Mhm.
to explore teletherapy prior to COVID. And so I reached out to an expert in our field, and she flew down to San Diego and she trained the team. And we really looked at like how we can take this approach and move it to teletherapy.
Sure.
And we did a pitch, I'm sorry, a pilot, and we piloted it with about 4 or 5 families,
Yeah.
and it went really well. We were super excited, and we pitched it to a community up in Northern California that is
Right.
extremely rural.
Hmm.
Therapists are driving 2, 3 hours just to get to a family's home. So
Wow.
that greatly impacts, the supply of therapists when they're
Sure.
spending a lot of their time driving.
Hmm.
And we signed a contract with them prior to COVID. So it was
Okay.
great when COVID hit. We really felt like our team was very well prepared. We had the trainings. We could move pretty quickly,
Sure. Yeah.
all things considered, to a hundred
Right.
percent remote approach.
Sure. And it's interesting that you always had this vision. And, I think one of the important things to note here, and what I hear is that you did market research, right? You did a pilot and you actually tested, will this work? How can we roll it out? Will it be attractive to families? And of course it was. And so you had some of the systems in place. So to be able to replicate that, so when COVID hit and something we can't control, it was all hands on deck. And how do we take our current clients and also be able to serve more? So the
Yeah.
innovation was there. And it was a resiliency strategy, whether you knew it or not at the time, that you already had in place.
Yeah, a little bit of luck, a little bit of innovation, a little
Mhm.
all the good things kind of.
Yes.
It really
Lots of
puts,
caffeine and
yeah,
that's right.
it really puts the
Yeah.
pressure on you now, though. It's
Yeah.
like, wow, if I anticipated that, like I have to keep anticipating the future. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to do from here. So,
Sure.
uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, so maybe a little bit of luck, but yeah, definitely the ability to anticipate where the field is going, I
Hmm.
think is huge. And I think that continues to play a role in today. I don't anticipate another COVID or a
Hmm.
big switch, but I do think it's interesting to see, you know, how fields change and at a micro level that
Hmm.
eventually make large shifts
Sure.
later on
Mhm.
down the road.
Yeah. So 10 years, congratulations. That's a
Thank you.
huge, huge, huge win and not by default. And what would you say has been one of the key areas of your business, or maybe how about a lesson? What's been one of the key lessons in your 10 years in business that has kept the business going and kept you going as the visionary?
It's a great question. I thought really hard about this one because there's a million
Sure.
lessons,
Hmm.
but I think maybe an overarching one is just, and I know you and I have had conversations about this in the past, but trusting your gut.
Yeah.
And there's times where I did trust my gut and it turned out right. And
Hmm.
there's times when I went against that gut feeling and I learned a lesson because of
Sure.
it. So
Hmm.
I think as a new entrepreneur, trusting your gut is a lot harder
Hmm.
because you don't have the track record to prove
Or
to
you don't have the
yourself that you're
data
good.
and yet,
Yeah,
and yes. Hmm.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
scary. It's a leap.
Hmm.
But and it's still scary today,
Hmm.
it's always a scary thing, but I do think looking back, that's something my husband always said to me, and I know that you've said that too. It's just like trust your gut.
Hmm.
um, and that's seems to have paid off for me.
Hmm.
I would say the second lesson, if I could have two,
Sure.
um, would be transparency.
Hmm.
Transparency with your team.
Hmm.
um, I think for a long time, when we struggled financially, I struggled to be upfront and transparent to my team because I didn't want them to be concerned. I wanted to hold
Hmm.
that if I carried that weight, that no one else would have to. But I
Hmm.
think what I learned is that if I carried that weight, then I would have to fix the problem alone. And that was impossible. I
That's
couldn't fix
huge.
it by myself. I needed the team to understand and to see,
Hmm.
that we all had to row in the same direction in order to get
Yep.
where we were going.
Yep. Yes. What do you think was the shift, or was there a particular moment when you had a shift from holding everything to I can I can communicate this. I don't have to carry this alone.
I think I started doing quarterly company updates, and that's when I was kind of like pushed into. And I think at the time we were making some like large changes to the company because of, the financial,
Mhm.
constraints that we were under. And I remember that feeling just
Mhm.
in the pit in my stomach of just being like, I have to go in front of all of these people and I have to paint this dark picture that things
Sure.
aren't great. Um, and their overwhelming response of
Mhm.
support was just
Mhm.
so eye-opening for me that like
Yep.
they want this from me. They want this transparency. So many of them were willing to sacrifice certain things, like
Mm.
maybe from the expense side, things
Yeah.
that they thought we needed.
Mm.
Um, so that, for the better of the company. And it's
Mhm.
just absolutely amazing to see your team rally around that
Yeah.
and to know that, we all want this for
Hmm.
ourselves.
Hmm. That vulnerability from you, right? And the vulnerability exposing the belly of the company. And
Yeah.
when you have a team that's engaged and believes in the vision and mission and believes in the leader, they want they want to be there. They want to make it work. They want to help. What do you think
Mhm.
has been some of the I mean, because I've witnessed your leadership, and you're an amazing leader, and you have this amazing team, and the team continues to grow, and there's people that have been with you practically the whole 10 years as well.
Yeah.
And so what would you say if you have any tips as far as leadership goes, or what's worked for you and your leadership style to engage a team that is with you for the long haul?
That's a great question. I think trust. I think it sounds like a generic answer, but I think you truly have to trust, each person comes to uh, the table with a different perspective and a different gift, right?
Mhm.
Or a different strength, however you want to look at it. And I think I always felt like it was my job to help really like uncover what that strength or that gift is that they're bringing to the team and allow them to really own it. If I try to micromanage each person from, each angle that they have, then I am what's the word, limiting
Yeah.
what they
Hmm.
can do
Hmm.
ultimately in terms of their gifts.
Hmm.
I don't know
Yeah.
if that answers your
Mhm.
question.
Yeah. So understanding your team's strengths and playing to those, giving them
Hmm.
opportunities. So out, within their work, the technical work, but also they have things to bring to the company, skills or ideas or what have you that help continue to help the company where they can bring even more value.
Yeah, and the flip side of that is when someone leaves,
Mhm.
I always have a conversation with them, of course, and I say to them, and I truly mean this, the first I don't know if you remember right after COVID, after everyone kind of went back
Mhm.
to work. They called it the Great Resignation.
Yeah.
And that was, when everybody started like really looking at their life and making big shifts and big changes. And we lost a lot of our team and a
Yeah.
lot of them just to those like big life shifts. Nothing, maybe not personally to the
Mhm.
company or anything like that, but I had a lot of conversations with each person who left. And I said to them, and I say this every time someone leaves, is if you feel like you grew personally
Mhm.
from the day that you started at RL to the day that you left at RL, then
Mhm.
I've done my job
Yep.
because this company is a vehicle,
Hmm.
and we're all just on the vehicle
Yeah.
to drive you from point A to whatever the next point is in your life.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
understanding that my job isn't really just to run the company and to have a profitable business, but my job is to make sure that every person on the bus feels like that they're growing and they're being like fed in that way that they want to.
Hmm.
And if they stay with us for the length of the company, then that's my gift. But
Yeah.
if they choose to like take their gifts to, somewhere else, then that's a gift that someone else is going to receive down the road.
Hmm. Hmm. Really very powerful. Have you always thought that way?
No. In the beginning, I remember taking it really personal when someone would leave, or when someone would want more. I constantly, like, if they wanted more growth, they wanted more. I constantly felt like I can't keep providing this to you. Like I can't, I felt a heavy weight.
Hmm.
Whereas as I grew in my leadership, I learned to like see that that was something I did truly love if I could
Yeah.
take the time to like feed into each person
Hmm.
and to know what they want to do and to watch them grow.
Sure.
One of the things we ask at every annual review is how can I make this your dream job? And I
Hmm.
don't mean it like make $5 million. I mean,
Right.
I if that's how they feel, I want them to tell me that. Like I truly, and I will never be okay with the answer of it is my dream job,
Hmm.
because we really have to think beyond, what we think is possible. And I think that's sometimes how I can get my best ideas for the vision of the company is when someone comes up with something that they think is completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
I will say, like, I'm gonna look into it. I'm gonna see. Like,
Hmm.
I've had
I can't promise, but I'm going to look into it.
yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think I've been able to make some of those things happen just
Hmm.
through thinking outside the box and
Hmm.
figuring out a way to make it possible.
Hmm. I love it. So,
It's
and
fun.
you mentioned something, in the beginning, right? When somebody would leave, it was like, they're not going to stay with me for the next 30 years, or, where it's, okay, you spread your wings and it opens something up for someone else who can come in and you at this point have the systems, right? So you've got the recruiting systems and the hiring and the training and all of that. So it's the system and then it's opening that up for someone else who can come and learn from being in the company, whether it's until the end of time or for a few years or whatever that looks like.
Yes, and the amount of therapists that have gone and come back is
Mm,
really high. I always joke with my team, we need to like measure this. We need to
yeah.
measure this because I think we would be like at the forefront of our field for the number of therapists that have gone and then come back.
Yes.
So
Like
I'm proud of
just like ex-boyfriends, they always seem to come back.
we just take the good ones
Yeah,
back.
we
The,
should,
the good
yeah,
ex-boyfriends is what I
sure.
mean.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Not speaking from experience, of
No,
course.
no.
It's a saying. It's a
Yes.
saying. Yes. So what is next for RL therapy?
Well, we are doing a lot of work right now to understand who our 20% is.
Mhm.
So, understanding, what are those top tier clients that, you know, have you heard of Blue Ocean Strategy? This
Yes.
is,
I have the book. I got this was years ago and I got the first couple chapters and I couldn't get into it. And now everybody's talking about it. So it's like, shoot, I should go back and
oh,
finish
really?
it. Yeah.
Oh, one of my director of marketing reached out to me in the new year and she said, I think you should listen to this book. So I've been doing the audio, which might be
Yeah.
easier to get through,
Yeah.
but and it's really opened up our eyes as to, what is our blue ocean strategy for those who aren't aware. Your blue ocean strategy is how do you find that unique market
Mm,
where, your profitability is where it needs to be. It's that niche of customers that need you. Maybe they don't know that they need you quite
mhm,
yet. Maybe the rest of the industry isn't even aware that this group is in need. And tapping into that and
Yeah.
figuring out, how you can do that. So
Mhm.
we're working on developing that. Definitely our 20% are working with augmentative and alternative communication
Okay.
devices. And
Mm.
so if you're unaware, that's someone who's non-speaking who needs, an iPad with an app
Mm.
to communicate.
Okay.
And we have a couple contracts right now that provide those devices,
Great.
the iPad, the app, which are extremely expensive
Mhm.
together, free of cost,
Wow.
and that's for anyone who lives in the state of California. So
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
an incredibly rewarding experience to
Oh, I
be
bet.
able to work with these families and provide them, these devices. And
Mhm.
so we're continuing not only to provide those devices, but to provide that training and support that they really need. Up until now, it's been like schools issue the device or insurance companies issue the device, and it's kind of like, okay, you're on your own.
Sure.
And doesn't really work like that. There's a lot of device abandonment that happens when the right training and supports aren't in place to make it a successful
Hmm.
journey for the
Okay.
family. So
And that's where your team comes in to show families like this is how you use it effectively. This is how you build. It was like building in the as a lifestyle and teaching them how to use it, but also teaching their family member how to use it.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I think so often, a child who's non-speaking, we just accept that, they may never have a best friend that they could communicate
Mm.
with, or they may never be able to participate in, just a simple exchange that you and I, probably take for granted.
Yeah.
And it's really our mission to help bring those moments
Mhm.
to families
Mm.
who wouldn't otherwise
Mhm.
have that opportunity.
Oh my
So,
goodness. So rewarding. Thank you. Thank you. And your team
thanks.
probably you too. I love it. Yeah. Good. Well, great. Well, we can't wait to see what's next for our RL therapy group. And so if anyone needs to or wants to get in touch and learn more about how this could work in their home, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, visit us at our website, which is www.rltherapygroup.com. You can find us on the socials,
Mm.
Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all that good stuff.
Mm.
And reach out to our team. We are always around with an
Good.
amazing team, who are happy to, even just have a free consultation and tell families a little bit more about who we are and what this looks like and how we can help.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Ryan, for your insights and sharing your journey and lessons and the breakthroughs that you've had in your amazing 10 years of business. Congratulations again. And thank you to those of you who listened in. Make sure you type in your top BFO, blinding flash of the obvious, in the comments. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.